Hey, it's John with Behringer, and welcome to Music Studios. Today I have the X32 Compact, part of the X32 family of digital consoles. The X32 Compact is, just as its name would say, a more compact version of the full-size X32, which means it features the same powerful mix engine and a lot of the same great features. This includes Midas-designed mic preamps, motorized faders, wireless mixing capabilities, and a multi-channel audio interface. So it's a lot more features. Let's just get in and talk about it. Looking at the control surface of the X32 Compact, you'll see that we have 17 motorized faders, and they're divided up with 8 faders to handle our inputs, 8 faders to handle our outputs, and a dedicated master fader. Now what's nice on the X32 Compact is I can use my layer buttons over here on the left to cycle between, for example, channels 1 through 8, channels 9 through 16, and so on, 17 to 24, and 32. Or I can actually press 2 layer buttons at the same time and spill those 2 layers across all 16 faders. So this allows me to look at, for example, all 16 of my mic inputs at once. So very flexible with how you can lay out your channels here. Each channel features its own solo and mute and select button with some metering, which will show you your pre-fader level as well as gate and compressor activity. But the most exciting thing here is our LCD scribble strips. These are going to allow you to label your channels with text, colors, and even pictures so that you always know where you're at when cycling between layers. Moving up the fader strip here, if you press the select button, that will activate the channel strip controls for that channel, which you'll find on the top left side of the console, starting with our preamp and config section. The first encoder you'll see will handle your mic gain. You also have switches here for your 48-volt individually selectable phantom power and a phase switch. You'll also find in this section the low-cut filter, which you can engage and start dialing in here. Or you can press the view button, which will call up the parameters on the 7-inch TFT color screen for further dialing that in. So you have these view buttons all over the console surface in various sections, so you can start dialing in, press the view button, and get to the more advanced parameters on the screen. So moving along, we get to our gate and our dynamics, and it's the same setup here where I can engage that, I can dial in a threshold, but then I can press view and I can find my more advanced parameters such as attack, release. It's all there. There's even a key filter in this dynamic section as well. Next, we get to the EQ section, which is a 4-band, fully parametric EQ. So that means I can make any of these bands either a low cut or a shelf or a parametric booster cut. And there's actually 2 modes for this, a vintage curve and a regular parametric curve as well. What's great about the EQ is that it also features a full 100-band RTA, or real-time analyzer, which is going to allow you to visualize what's happening with your signal. This is a really great tool for finding and eliminating feedback. Next, we'll find a view button for your bus sends. So these are like your aux sends. You have 16 total mix buses on the X32 Compact, and you can use these for setting up monitor mixes, sending to effects, or as traditional subgroups. Pressing the view button will allow you to use the encoders by the screen to send your channel to various mix buses. Alternatively, you can use the Sends on Fader feature to select the mix bus and use the faders to send channels to that bus. And finally, we find the main bus section, which has the send for the mono bus here, and we can also pan our channel and add it or remove it from the stereo bus. So that wraps up the channel strip. Let's take a look at the output side of things. Now remember that all of the mix buses, including your main left-right, also feature dynamics processing, and your parametric EQ actually gives you 6 bands. So again, this is great in combination with your RTA for ringing out your wedges or tuning your system. Taking a look at the faders on the output side of the console, we have 8 faders again, and we start with our DCA groups. Our 8 DCA groups allow you to control the volume of multiple channels on a single fader. So you can take your whole 32-channel mix and bring it onto these 8 faders for easier mixing. On the second layer, we'll find the masters for our first 8 mix buses, and we'll find the second 8 mix buses on the third layer, and then finally on the fourth layer, we'll find our 6 matrix mixes and our master for the mono bus. We have 6 matrix mixes on the X32 Compact, and these are great for sending signals to overflow rooms or maybe a mix for broadcast. But on the X32, you can also use these for a crossover, and that's because we have full 24 dB an octave crossover filters built into the EQ on the matrix mixes. So this will allow you to set up a 3-way stereo crossover. And finally, we find our dedicated master fader on the right. Moving along, we find our 6 dedicated mute group buttons, which will allow you to mute multiple channels with the touch of a single button. Just above that, we're going to find 8 more buttons, and those are for assignable control. So what you can do is you can assign various functions to these buttons. You can see we have one blinking now because it's set for tap tempo, but you can also assign these to other functions such as jumping to a certain page, and it's just a really great way to help you get to those important spots very quickly. Just above that, we'll find scene navigation controls for the X32 Compact's scene management system. Like the X32, the X32 Compact features 100 full scenes, which are basic snapshots of the entire console setup, and in addition to that, 100 snippets, which are like miniature scenes. They're great for saving things like maybe a channel strip or an effects rack setting, and we can combine those two together to form up to 500 cues. So this is really great for those theatrical productions, festivals, anytime where you just have a lot of things happening in a single event. You could just pre-program that all in there and you're good to go. Moving along to some of the menus by the screen here, we'll start with our most exciting, which is the 8-space stereo effects rack. This rack is divided in half, with the first 4 effects being set up for your send and return effects, things like reverb or delays or any type of processing where you might want to send more than one channel to that processor. The second half of the rack is set up for inserts or graphic EQs like we have by default, or maybe dynamics processing or something that you want to insert on a single channel. So out of the box, we're set up for 2 stereo reverbs, a delay, a chorus, and 8 channels of graphic EQ, but of course you can set this up however you like. In fact, there's over 50 plugins to choose from, including emulations of some classic outboard gear from the past. Next, you'll find the preset library, which is loaded with presets from our friends that are out using the X32 series professionally, both live and in the studio. So what you're going to get are great starting points for EQs, compression, effects, and things like that. And you could also use the library to save and load your own settings. Next, we'll find our setup screen where we can set up all the various parameters of the console, including labeling our channels. Next is the routing page where we can select our input sources and assign all of our analog and digital outputs. Next, we find a meters page, which gives us a few different pages of meters that we can use to watch our signals. And finally, the home page brings us to a nice overview of whatever channel or bus is selected. Rounding out the control surface, we'll find controls for our dedicated monitor and talkback section. The X32 Compact features a built-in talkback mic, but also has an input for your own external mic. The USB recorder slot will allow you to record a stereo mix, either the main left, right, or any channels you send to it, right to a USB stick. It'll also allow you to play back tracks, and you can back up and load your scenes and presets on here as well. So that about covers the control surface of the X32 Compact. Let's have a look at our I/O on the back. First off, we find our 16 MIDAS designed microphone preamps. Now these are award-winning, very clean preamps. You're gonna love them. Next to those, we find our 6 1/4-inch inputs and outputs. Now, these inputs will show up on your aux-in layer on the input section of the console, and the outputs are balanced and assignable, so you can basically use these as extra ins and outs. You can also use these ins and outs together as an insert point for external processing. Just below that, we'll find our 8 assignable XLR balanced outputs. Outputs 7 or 8 are your main outs by default. Rounding out the analog connectivity is your talkback input and dedicated outputs for your studio monitors or Q-Edge. On the bottom here, we'll find our digital connectivity, starting with our dual AES-50 ports. Now you can use these ports to interface with our digital stage boxes, including the S16 or S32, or to connect to additional X32 consoles for a front-of-house monitor situation, or maybe a broadcast mix. Next, we find the Ultranet port, which we can use to interface with our P16 personal monitoring system, or to connect to select TurboSound speaker systems using the acoustic integration feature. Next, we have our AES EBU stereo digital output and some MIDI connectivity. Next, we find the remote connection, which unlocks the powerful wireless mixing capabilities of the X32 Compact. There are free apps available for PC, Mac, Linux, iPad, and iPhone so that you can mix from anywhere in the room. Finally, we have our expansion slot, which comes preloaded with the X-USB card. This is going to provide you with a full 32 by 32 channel audio interface for your computer. We've also included a license for downloading Traction DAW software so that you can get up and running right out of the box. Or switch out the X-USB card for one of our other expansion card options, including ADAT, MADI, or Dante. And rounding out the back of the console is our standard IEC socket for our switch mode power supply. This power supply is auto-ranging from 100 volts to 240 volts, so wherever you travel in the world, you're going to be good to go. This is the X32 Compact, part of the X32 family of digital consoles. For more information and media, please come see us at Behringer.com. I'm John with Behringer. Thanks for joining us at Music Studios.